turn this on. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order and welcome to the May 15th public meeting of council. Number of things to do today. I think everybody has a copy of the agenda in front of them. To begin, we'll accept a motion on the agenda as presented. It is moved by Councillor Akers, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Are there any additions to the agenda? Any additions outside? I see archival air photos. Is that an addition to the planning? City awards contract. We're going to talk about that a little later as well, but that's also contained in the current agenda. All right, that being the case, I'll call it, move the agenda as presented. All in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Minutes and action report from the Public Council meeting of May 1st, 2012. You have that in front of you. I'll accept a motion to accept it as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Locke, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Are there any errors or omissions? Errors or omissions from the meeting of May 1? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Business arising. Business arising. Councillor Stoyles, item 315. The smell? Okay, all right, yeah, all right. I wasn't here. Did anybody? Would any of the Purple Raiders have any kind of?
Yeah, Your Worship, we are in the process of setting a meeting up with the residents in the area to have a chat about what it is that the orders that they are receiving, what time of day, that kind of information, and then we'll follow.
Is it not obvious what it is? Is it not like a manure thing? Or?
We're making assumptions here.
We're making it at this point.
Yeah, we haven't. I mean,
have we had other complaints since this one?
The only we have not received any complaints in the office, but I understand the complaints came through the council.
I've not received one. Has anybody else received one? You, Councillor Stoyles, I know, but anybody else? Okay, all right.
There has been a stench, though, but it's typical this time of the year.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The fields get done in that, and so for about a week you go through that, but this appears to be more than that. Councillor Stoyles.
Well, what I understood, because prior to other years, this is new area for seniors, and a number of seniors moved down in that area, and that's where the concern came from.
Yeah.
That I brought. And of course, you weren't here, so I'm just filling you in on it. Now,
yep.
Basically, one particular senior had to leave her home because she was overcome by the smell, and another family had to leave and go to Clarenville for the weekend, or for several days. Apparently, it was that bad down there. One family had to move out the bedroom and go into the living room. Apparently, now this was the same family that moved to Clarenville for a long period of time, for several days. So it was quite serious down there, and that's why I brought the council and asked to have it.
But of late, there's been no problem.
Well, I haven't. I've spoken.
You haven't followed up.
I have followed up. I spoke to the gentleman that called me initially, and I told him that we were working on it, and he was waiting for Mr. Yevchek to.
Okay, so we're going to actually call a meeting with these residents, Mr. Yevchek. Is that the idea? You're going to call a meeting with these residents and try and get some details on what's going on?
Yes, Your Worship. The intention is actually call the residents in the area and actually come into the City Hall here. We'll sit down and have a chat with them. And once we have the background information, we'll follow it up.
Okay. What is actually behind them? Is it the experimental farm? Behind Avery Place? There's not a commercial farm, a working farm there?
It's partly the experimental farm part, I think Lester's farm as well.
I think a lot of us come from Lester's farm.
I would. Yeah, okay.
All right,
thank you. Councillor Walsh.
295, just to speak to NAIOSH Week. Your Worship, we had a great week of activities. I think a number of us represented council at various functions throughout the week. I know I was there on Monday at the depot. We met with the workers there to kind of kickstart NAIOSH Week activities, which is North American Occupational Safety and Health, of course, for those who don't know the acronym. I just want to extend congratulations to Jennifer and our safety committee, because that is a volunteer committee, and all those who worked to put together a full week of activities. This is just one week throughout the year in which we sort of highlight the importance of safety. We've changed the culture of safety quite a bit in recent years. There was a time, and regrettably there are still places where that time still exists, where people They participate in safe work practices or wear safety apparel and gear only when the supervisor is present or a foreman's around, and that's really inappropriate because we do all these things for the general safety and protection of our workers, or they do these things, I should say. We do a tremendous job, I think, of providing oversight and making sure that the programs and the training is in place and that they have the apparatus to carry out their jobs in a safe manner. And I think taking a week like we did last week, Your Worship, and really highlighting it throughout the organization. It's not just with our outside workers, the ergonomics in our office space. There's so many different things in which the welfare and safety of our workers come into play. So again, just kudos to the people who organized the week and to Jennifer and her crew. I think regrettably Jennifer had a death in the family during that week as well, which made it doubly difficult for her at a very, very busy time. So I just wanted to extend congratulations to one and all for a job well done.
Thank you, sir. Any other comment? Any other business arising, again, from the meeting of May 1st? Hearing none, we'll move along then on the agenda. Come on, you. Next item on the agenda, proclamations and presentations. Council, we have one proclamation that we are going to put into the record today, and this has to do with Jumpstart, giving kids a sporting chance. And this is done in conjunction with a major corporate sponsor, that being Canadian Tire. I would imagine that most of council is now familiar with this program. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas 1 in 3 Canadian families cannot afford to involve their children in sport or recreational activities, whereas Jumpstart believes all kids should have the chance to run, skate, play, grow, and participate in organized sports and recreation, such as hockey, dance, swimming, and basketball, so they can develop important life skills, life esteem, confidence. And whereas Canadian Tire Jumpstart helps kids in financial need participate in organized sport and recreation, with 100% of customer donations going directly to kids in this community. And whereas since 2005, Canadian Tire Jumpstart has helped more than 417,000 kids across Canada participate in organized physical activities, including 11,316 children here in the Avalon chapter. And whereas Jumpstart Day is a day dedicated to raising awareness across Canada so all kids can play. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Randy Sims, on behalf of the Mount Pearl City Council, do hereby proclaim May 26, 2012 as Jumpstart Day to give kids a sporting chance here in Mount Pearl. And to that, I will affix my signature, and I'm going to invite Councillor Tessier, Chair of Community Services, to speak to this particular activity. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I want to commend Canadian Tire for this exceptional program because to date, 90 children in Mount Pearl have been able to avail of this service.
90
to the tune of about $35,000 in financial assistance to allow them to participate in organized sports. Sean McKenna, of course, is our city staff person who's the member of the Avalon chapter. I know that part of his responsibility is to help with that allocation and distribution of funds. So again, I think Canadian Tire, this program is absolutely wonderful. We all know that organized sports sometimes is a very, very expensive venture. But this programs like this give children who would not be able to avail of those opportunities a chance, as they say, a chance to participate in sports. So again, I commend Canadian Tire for this. I encourage them to continue with this program. 90 children have been directly affected, and we'd like to see many, many more.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, we will forward, obviously, through your good graces, Councillor Tessier, you'll see that a copy of this actually gets into the hands of the people at Canadian Tire who organized this event, and let them know certainly of our support and our encouragement. A great community corporate citizen, Canadian Tire has proven to be, and that's absolutely wonderful. Any other comment on that? If not, we'll move then to committee reports. Council, I'm going to ask if you would allow us to deviate from the structure that is contained in the agenda today. If you would, I would like to be able to move our Planning and Land Use Committee report up front today. There are a couple of issues that are of importance to people here, and quite frankly, I see no reason to torture them beyond having to listen to us actually do the first report. So if Council will give us leave to do that, I'm going to call first for Planning and Land Use, invite Councillor Aker to carry on with the planning reports. Everybody good with that? Okay. Councillor Aker, if you would.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to council members. And also, I'd like to welcome Mr. Turpin from Glade Crescent to our council meeting today. And He has an interest. He attended our briefing session, which was held on April 17th, and he is the owner of a house which has a heat pump. And although we don't have many in the city, some of the ones that we have, and I don't believe his is part of that package, but some of them are causing some problems. Typically, the older heat pumps are. There's two motions before you today. One has to do with updating the noise bylaws to deal with noise associated with both heat pumps and generally complaints about noise, primarily from heat pumps, but also from snow clearing, as we had problems over in the area of Goldeneye and Harlequin with operators plowing at all hours, long after a snowfall, and keeping some of the neighbors awake.
Well, wouldn't that be one of the exemptions?
Not for a private snow clearing operator. I think they can plow during a snowfall event 12 hours after that, as we're about to propose, but naturally the city would be exempt, Councillor Walsh, from doing their job. So two motions. I'd like to speak to both, if I could, Your Worship, and then make the motion of the two motions at the end of the process, because
All right.
they are very interrelated.
They do tie together, sure.
And maybe in the interest of time, that'll turn out to be a good idea. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting a good night's sleep. Issues with heat pumps have been driven by, this whole issue's been driven by complaints, primarily due to heat pumps, as well as the snow clearing. So what we're doing is we're updating our noise bylaw regulations, and what we're going to do is we're going to implement a standard at 55 decibels, and that would be the standard that staff could objectively enforce, assuming that they have the equipment, and we would enforce it between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And again, it's all about people when they're lying at rest in their bed, about being able to get a good night's sleep and not have to worry about the constant noise or hum or the intermittent noise coming from. And it doesn't matter whether it's a heat pump. It could be an air conditioner, a compressor, a heat pump, of course, exhaust fans, intake fans, pumps, infiltration, any device, for example, that might be hooked up to a hot tub or the like, right? Anything that's outdoors typically is driven by a motor of some sort, right? And again, we're trying to give staff some objective criteria so that they can deal with noise complaints when they come in. I don't personally feel that every complaint that comes in about noise should end up at the council table, because it wouldn't get dealt with on a timely basis. Staff need to act upon these on a regular and timely basis. The issue is not about the equipment. The issue is about the noise. Perfectly running equipment can be noisy if it's not properly installed by a qualified installer or contractor. It can be noisy if it's old, because it's not well maintained. And it can also be noisy simply because it was manufactured at a time when noise levels for this type of equipment were higher. Not that they were made to run noisy, but they were made to run not as quiet as some of the newer models that are coming out today. You can also muffle the equipment with blankets or fencing, but at the end of the day, it still could be noisy. So the perspective that we've taken from the point of view of our noise bylaw is not directly the person who owns the piece of equipment. It's more so the people sleeping next door. That's one of the considerations. That's what's dealt with in the noise bylaw. What the building or the development regulations takes care of is the location of the heat pumps. That takes care of where you should locate it on your property if you happen to own or use pieces of equipment like this. In addition, around here, our winter climate can create additional noise. The noise is caused because basically of our cold temperatures. The machinery for a heat pump, for example, has to work a lot harder to extract what little heat's in our air. And the defrost cycle can cause additional noises to be made as the heat pump, which is really an air conditioner in reverse, as it has to go back, it has to take the heat from the house, believe it or not, back outdoors to defrost the coils in that are outside. Right? At source, a well-maintained modern heat pump can operate about 60 to 65 decibels, which I might note is higher than the noise bylaw standard that we're putting in here. But sound level at the source is not the issue. The issue is at the point of reception to the person when they're in their house or on their property and listening to the device. And that I'm trying to explain there why we would have a 55 decibel level for purposes of the noise bylaw, yet we would allow equipment that possibly could be running at 60 to 65 decibels. But when you locate your heat pump or the like further away from your neighbor, the sound as it transmits gets lower and lower. Right? The further away you are, the lower the sound will be. Okay? So again, we're not measuring the noise at source. It's at the property boundary line. 50 to 55 decibels is equivalent to a quiet conversation. So basically, if a quiet conversation was happening at 3 o'clock in the morning on your property, basically, generally speaking, that should be acceptable. You can't eliminate all noise. That would be pretty heavy-handed by the city. We're not expecting absolute silence, but noise which is constant can be loud, and typically regular noise, this is my layman's words now, regular noise as it comes out can be filtered out by the brain. Typically what can go wrong is intermittent noise, like a heat pump cutting in, cutting out, cutting in, cutting out. That's what you're going to hear when you're lying in bed at 3 in the morning. So our approach here, Your Worship, is driven, I think, by reasonableness and common sense, and we're trying to strike a balance between the owners of a relatively green technology, an expensive technology once it's installed, and the expectation of a good night's sleep. But the key is the location of the device as a preventative measure. But keep in mind, too, the way we're structuring this, noise is the overriding factor. Going forward, we're enacting this noise bylaw here today to deal with the complaints. We're also changing our development regulations to reduce noise-related issues, so that heat pumps, air conditioners, external fans, and the like will be located in certain places in the property. For example, it will be restricted to the rear yard or flanking street side, where there wouldn't be any adjoining houses. It must be at least 2.4 meters from a side property boundary, and must be at least 3 meters from a neighboring door or window. The city will also be purchasing a noise meter so that our staff can go out now and objectively deal with the complaint. When we get a complaint for noise, they'll take the decibel reader out, they'll go to the property line, they'll have a measurement, and from there we'll go. But at the end of the day, the onus is on the resident to be in compliance with the noise bylaw. Now we get to the issue of retroactivity. Building regulation change is not retroactive. So if you have a heat pump on the side of your yard, it's okay to leave it there. If you have, but on the other hand, it's considered a non-conforming use. The noise bylaw, however, would be effective immediately, and homeowners will be asked to comply with the noise bylaw, and that may require that they have to fix the noisy components of their heat pump, add a muffling device such as a blanket, build a fence around it. They may have to replace it with a quieter device. If it's making too much noise, can't be repaired, maybe they'll have to replace that device. Another alternative, and some of these are expensive, is moving the existing device away from the property line. And again, the further away you put the device from your neighbor, the more that the sound as it transmits will dissipate before it gets to your neighbor's house. Okay? So finally, and the other issue here, you might notice in the noise regulations too, is we're dealing with the issue of snow clearing. So just for council's benefit, we're restricting private snow clearing operators to snow clearing when there is a snowfall event or 12 hours thereafter. Right? And that's because of the issue at Harlequin and Goldeneye. So there's two motions there, Your Worship. One is to adopt the new noise bylaw regulations, including the changes highlighted, and two, to amend the development regulations, Section 6, to include heat pumps, air conditioners, and external fans. And I just want to reiterate again that the changes in the development regulations are not they're not applied retroactively. So if you have a heat pump on the side of your boundary, that doesn't mean just because we're enacting that today that you have to get up and move that. It's welcome to stay there as long as it's not causing any noise for the homeowners. And if I could, Your Worship, I just wanted to make some highlights because this issue is not just prevalent in Mount Pearl, although it is here on a very small scale. CMHC did some research, and if you don't mind, I'll just read it. It was concluded that exterior residential heat pumps are a major source of continuous noise and are certainly a source of environmental disruption in low and mid-density residential areas. The noise levels produced vary depending on the power of the pumps, their technology, when they are manufactured, their degree of wear and tear, and how they are placed around the residence. Another comment. This is from the Tri-City area. The noise level is that of a noisy conversation, referring to what comes from a heat pump. Basically, if the heat pump is placed next to the neighbor's bedroom window, then yes, it may be a problem. Otherwise, no. This is a quote from Dan Scoons. He's with again with the Tri-City area. He's the manager of bylaw services. And he said most heat pumps range in the noise level from 60 to 70 decibels, which is higher than the 45 to 55 decibels set in a standard noise bylaw. Ours is set at the higher end, at 55. another thing from Mr. Scones. He cited a civil court case in Coquitlam between two neighbors who could not agree on the noise from an air conditioner. Ultimately, the judge imposed decibel limits similar to those enacted in Toronto bylaws. And this ruling indicated how much better it would have been if the city had enacted a bylaw. So even though we're only reacting here to perhaps, 2 heat pumps in the city, it's nice to get ahead of the game, to put it in place now so that as more heat pumps get installed in the city, they get put in a location that's going to reduce the probability of transmitting noise, and to enact a bylaw that helps the residents next door, protects them from excessive noise. And with that, Your Worship, I'll make those 2 motions, and I'll entertain some discussion.
Can I ask you to make the 2 motions as separate motions, however?
Yeah.
So let's do the first one first and the second one second, just to keep it clear, both for the record and for commentary that the motions may generate from council. Now you've got to go find it. Sorry, apologize.
No, that's fine. No. Almost there. All right, Your Worship, the first noise issue regarding heat pumps, the first motion is to amend Section 6, General Development Standards of the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 by adding a section entitled Heat Pumps, Air Conditioners, and External Fans. And that'll be immediately after Section 6.15. The following will be the text. Heat pump, air conditioner, external fan. Part 6.16.1. A heat pump, air conditioner, external fan shall be located in the flanking street side yard or rear yard of the principal building of the lot of the property in which the heat pump, air conditioner, or external fan is situated. Part 2, the heat pump or air conditioner or the device will be no closer than 2.4 meters from a side lot line of the property. And Part 3, no closer than 3 meters to a door or window of a dwelling of an adjoining lot. The second part of the motion is that we consider existing heat pumps as a non-conforming use and no action be taken to relocate the existing heat pumps in accordance with the proposed amendment, unless a noise complaint is received, upon which the matter will need to be addressed under the city's noise regulations. And I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I congratulate Councillor Aker and his committee for obviously a very thorough review of the research and data that exists, and I think for being proactive. In fact, as Councillor Aker suggested, I think we're out in front of this in terms of the province and probably this entire region as a result. And that's not a bad thing. I think that's actually a very good thing. The fact that at the hearing that we had representation from the City of St. John, some of their staff were there. This is going to become much more of a problem and an issue, and I think we're going to have more and more complaints about it as time goes on. I guess the supreme irony here is that heat pumps are really, on the one hand, very environmentally friendly, and on the other hand, somewhat contradictory. They create noise and create a nuisance in our neighborhoods. I'm delighted to know that the change in our regulations doesn't precipitate or necessitate residents to relocate their existing heat pumps, because obviously that would be a nuisance for all of us. But having said that, they still must comply with the noise bylaws. The one thing that I'd like to recommend is that I know that in the past, and hopefully it's slowly changing, in the past an awful lot of heat pumps were installed in homes without permits. And I think some of that was from ignorance. They didn't realize that you need a special permit building a new dwelling or installing a heat pump in an existing dwelling. And sometimes it's just, as always happens, it's an evasion of the regulations, and sometimes it's to avoid process, and sometimes it's to avoid the cost of fees and permits and the like. But we really need to get the word out, though, that to all builders, developers, private homeowners, that going forward, if you build a house tomorrow, next month, next year, and you have that heat pump in the side yard, now we have every right to ask you to relocate it. So it's really important that we get the word out. So I guess my question is, how are we going to do that? How do some sort of campaign with contractors, with builders, with developers, because I don't think it's that difficult to do it, but it's really important that we do it. Because if next month, as I say, you're building houses in Mount Pearl that have heat pumps located where they've always been and have built hundreds of houses, now we have a change. So we need to get that out. I'm just wondering, have you given any consideration to that, and how do you plan to do it?
Councilor Aker, we're going to defer to Mr. Yefchak. Mr. Yefchak.
Thank you for the question. Actually, in this process of trying to determine what would be a reasonable regulation amendment and noise regulation, we did do a bit of extra notification. We did contact the Newfoundland Labrador Home Builders Association, and we actually had 2 representatives from there at our briefing session. And really, it was the first time that they've been involved in that way, and they've commended the city to invite them. And secondly, the Chamber of Commerce. It's our intention, once this is approved and in effect, that we would go back to the Home Builders Association, advise them, number 1. Number 2, contact all our developers here in the city. And we're probably talking about 10 or 12, and advise them on what the requirement is. Go back to the Chamber of Commerce, and also do a public information bulletin that'd be available on our website to anyone who may be interested in doing heat pumps. The last point I'd like to make, there will be also changes coming forward in our building regulations that address heat pumps as well, because right now what we're dealing with is the location of heat pumps and the noise they make. The next piece we want to deal with is, I think as Councillor Aker has mentioned, the maintenance and the installation, ensure they're at a high quality.
Yeah, this becomes the regulatory piece.
Correct, and that of course will be in discussions with the home builders as well. And at the briefing session, I think some of the council members were there, one of the representatives from the home builders welcomed that approach. They suggested that's the approach we should take to ensure that what's being installed is installed properly, is maintained at a good level, so that these problems don't occur in the future.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. If I could, I'm glad that you put that kind of thought into the detail. It's either a really good thought in planning or a really good recovery. But I think it's the first one. But the other thing that I want to mention, heat pumps are not unlike anything else, and that was brought up in the public meeting as well. If you spend a few extra dollars on the purchase of a heat pump, and you spend a few dollars in addition to that to have it professionally installed, that comes back probably tenfold in terms of the number of problems that you'll have and the functionality of the unit. So I think we'd recommend both, that you buy a little better than the base quality unit, and that you have the thing professionally installed, because I don't think these people were talking about the importance of installation simply because they're in the business. I know obviously they're in the business and they'd like for people to have them professionally installed, but it makes sense, doesn't it? If this is what you do, and this is what you do for a living, and you know how to install them properly, and you know all the nuances and the things that can go wrong when they're not properly installed, it does make a big difference. There are a lot of people who can tinker with the car, but then you bring it to a place that has all the diagnostic equipment and know what they're doing, there's a big difference. So thank you very much for that, and again, well done to the committee. I think this is a tremendous change in our regulations. And by the way, in terms of enforcement and compliance, I think you're going to see this throughout the region very soon, and I think then the level of awareness with home builders, contractors, developers is going to be that much higher, and I think everybody then will know, well, this is the way to go with it.
I agree with you. I think maybe we're setting the standard for the region. Councillor Stoyles?
Thank you, Worship. I have actually one concern specifically, and that is where the heat pump will be located. And I know Councillor Aker and the staff has done a great job on this, and I certainly have some concerns, because I really don't see it as a major problem. And I know we've had only 2 complaints, and maybe it will be in the upcoming years, maybe it will be a major problem. But the concern I have is, if the heat pump can be located, I mean, it depends on how the house is located. So if somebody wanted in the future to put one under a side yard, and the house and the home next door was located in such a way that it could, because sometimes if a heat pump is put on the back, it mightn't work to heat the house properly, and that was one of the concerns I had. I'm just wondering if somebody wanted to, and they came in, they met the criteria, and they weren't that close, and the other house was diangled a different way or whatever, would we look at giving a permit for someone to do that as well? Like I said, I personally don't think it's a major issue. Sometimes when we bring regulations in, I know from talking to people in other towns, and I was out in Gander, and I've mentioned it to a number of people the weekend, and some towns were saying, yeah, well, everybody is putting them in, there's new technology, and we certainly don't want to, to stop people from doing stuff when they're saving money and cost sharing and green energy and all this, and that's what heat pumps is supposed to be doing. But I certainly had a concern with that.
Are there exemptions for or special considerations for being allowed to install a heat pump in a side yard beyond the flanking street side yard?
Your Worship, we didn't want to go there, mainly because initially we were going to bring in new noise regulations. And then we started to think about it. If we bring in the noise regulations, well, how does that impact people who are already on the side yard? And the people who are complaining are doing it based on their own individual needs. So if we started approving now, going forward, continue to approve through the building regulation process heat pumps on the side yard, well, we're only going to end up, I think, with the same problem. And if Councillor Stoyles, I think you could be right in some situations. One person may say to another person, their neighbors, and say, I don't really mind that, I don't mind a bit of noise. But then that neighbor moves, and a new neighbor moves in. Then what are we going to do? Like, how do we've got an inconsistent application of both our noise building regulations, and they're in conflict with the noise bylaws. So at the end of the day, they're going to come back to the city, and I suspect we're going to pay the price for that.
So the answer is we're not providing avenues for discretion.
We weren't going to consider it, no. But it goes to Councillor Stoyles' point and Councillor Walsh's point about relocation and location. It will be expensive for people with existing heat pumps. If they can't maintain them, if they can't put a blanket around them, at the end of the day, if they've got to either replace the heat pump or relocate it, it's going to be very, very expensive. And it's all about money at the end of the day. You can put a heat pump anywhere you want in your house, but by restricting the backyard, that may be one of the most expensive options. But I don't see how we got a choice. If we say we're going to put it on the side yard because it's cheaper or the neighbor doesn't mind, I think that's going to come back to bite us in the behind later on, right?
I hear. Deputy Mayor, you're
I
anxious
think
to
Councillor
speak?
Aker answered it, but to Councillor Stoyles' point, we just had a heat pump put in the country. And the way our house is rigged, it would cost me too much to put in my house, just because the best spot for me would be on my side yard, just the way my house is configured inside. So this regulation will, it'll increase the cost to me. I'm getting that background or feedback. Okay, thank you. I know where Councillor Stoyles is coming from, because this also came up when we were discussing this at Committee of the Whole, Your Worship. And initially we said, I thought the initial discussion was, it really doesn't matter the noisiness or the noise level of the unit, provided that it wasn't above 55 decibels at the boundary. And so let's say new technology comes out where in 3 years I could buy a heat pump that generates 25 decibels. Let's say the technology improves. The only spot that I could put it, again, would be in my backyard, which means I would have to come in through a completed rec room or a completed bedroom downstairs. I'm just talking about the infrastructure within the house.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the side yard, where it's our laundry facility, it would be much less expensive for me to incorporate one into my particular living space. It would be cheaper in that regard. So if the technology comes out that they can produce these machines, that noise is not an issue, it won't matter where you put it in the property. So I understand the spirit of Councillor Stoyles' question there. Are we restricting people who may want to avail of greener energy, as I would, because they're very efficient, and they reduce your heating costs, quite substantially. But it may handcuff some people. The installation costs may be prohibitive with this particular regulation. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
The only other concern I have,
Councillor Stoyles.
and
You've spoken. Hang on now. Hang on.
okay.
Anybody else? All right, before Councillor Aker closes debate, I'll go one time around. Councillor Stiles.
I just wanted to respond again, say the only concern I have, sometimes you got two bad neighbours, and if somebody got a heat pump in under a side yard, and they know they got, because you got a bad neighbour. Sometimes
You're gonna have a war.
We've had two complaints, is what I'm saying, and we've dealt with a number of other issues in the city where there's been bad neighbours, and 99% of the time I've learned, and I've been here over 16 years, 99% of the time when there's a complaint like that, 99% of the time is about two neighbours. It's not about the heat pump, it's not about the noise complaint, it's about having an enemy with your neighbour and not getting along. And I'm just going to say that because I've seen it over and over again, and I'm just going to say it again. I get along.
Yeah, okay. You wish to, all right, closing debate.
Well, Councillor Stoles, I agree with you. Hedges and heat pumps are right next to each other alphabetically. And you're right, very small number of incidences, but they always seem to be loud, the complaining between the neighbors. I guess what we had to consider in committee, and council has too, is when you apply the issue of noise, which we will now be able to measure objectively, so we eliminate these disputes between neighbors as to what levels are noisy, what levels are acceptable. We are now going to be using noise to trump the building regulations because we couldn't serve both masters. It didn't seem like we could put heat pumps and keep them on the side of the houses and still achieve the noise transmission standard that we're trying to enforce. The two wouldn't go hand in hand. As we speak, the heat pumps are evolving. There's these new ductless heat pumps that are out now. They don't stick out from the house like some of the couple that we've had here in Mount Pearl. They're actually attached to the side of the house. So there's no ductwork coming from outside all the way in. These heat pumps don't make as much noise. But guess what? They vibrate. And when they grab something like a piece of concrete or a wall and they begin to vibrate, the noise that you hear next door is not the noise from the fan or the equipment or the compressor. It's from the whole house vibrating. So this is constantly changing. So at the end of the day, Your Worship, I'm confident that by putting in these noise bylaws, that's the issue that's going to trump going forward, and I so move.
It has been moved. It has been seconded. Debate's closed. We're going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Item 2 should move a little quicker then.
Well, item 2 is the noise bylaw, and basically the changes that are included in our regulations there are to do with the heat pumps, and I've already mentioned them. They're to do also with a small change as it relates to snow clearing, and I'd like to move basically that from the Planning and Land Use Committee, the Council adopt the Mount Pearl Noise Regulations 2012, copies included in your kit, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Question or comment? Hearing none. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Good to know council likes to only do this thing once. I appreciate that. We won't do it a second time. All right, we'll continue on with the rest of the report. Councillor Aker.
It's so true. 2% of the issues drive 90% of our time and sometimes our money. Just bear with me, Your Worship. I'm trying to get to a fence on Westminster.
36 Westminster is where I am on mine.
Yes, as I recall, the height of the fence that's allowed according to our building regulations, Regulation 15, is the Mount Pearl fence regulations, and it basically says a fence shall not exceed a height of 1.8 meters. Council, however, has the discretion to vary that. In the case of the property right here at 36 Westminster, the adjoining neighbor is approximately, I'm going to talk now in terms of meters, not millimeters, so it's about a half a meter higher. So the neighbor is arguing that for privacy purposes, my fence needs to be 1.8 meters high plus an additional 0.5 for a total of 2.3.
Because my neighbor is sitting on higher ground.
And just looking down at
I
me.
can just look down over.
Right.
Okay.
So it's not a security issue, it's more just a privacy issue.
I got you, yeah.
Now you read in the report that it's 2.4 meters, not 2.3, but I don't want to be splitting hairs, and I move that council, at its discretion, that basically we allow the property owner to build at 36 Westminster, build a fence to the height of 2.4 meters, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
The next item, Your Worship, is the annual Canadian Institute of Planners Conference, October 9th to the 12th, and I'd like to put forward a motion recommending that the director be able to attend that planning conference. And by the way, this conference was held last year in St. John's. The director took a keen interest in it and actually took part in that conference. And he's not only going to bring greetings from the city of Mount Pearl, but I'm sure through all the sessions he's going to bring back a very informative report to the committee, and I so move.
It's happening in October in Banff, Alberta. You will not be wearing purple, Mr. Yefchak, I'm assuming? We'll call the question. Do we have we have a seconder in Councillor Ledwell? Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
I was hoping for a bit of debate on that one. Development permit list for April 30th to May 11th. Yeah. Development permits 26 and 27 are before you, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Just very quickly.
Yes.
Is the shooting range open?
No, but permission has been granted to develop.
Yeah. When will that happen? When will they open? No, I have to tell you, I have at least 3 residents who are all excited about the possibility that this is going to happen.
I hear they're
They're
shooting for late summer.
Shooting
Your Worship.
enthusiasts, right?
They're shooting for late summer, I hear.
They're shooting for late summer. Yeah, they have a targeted date, do they? Mr. Yefchak.
Oh, no.
Your Worship, it'll be some time because they're actually doing development, like new development on that site. And, of course, they now have the approval to proceed. Their plans still have to be reviewed by the RCMP. They got to do detailed plans. So it's going to be...
It'll be a while.
Well, yeah, I'd say if they're able to start this year, which I assume they will, they probably will, I'd say a spring opening, I'm guessing.
Yeah, something like that. All right, thank you. Oh, dear God, man.
Man.
Dear God. What a pistol. All right, let's go.
Your Worship, moving right along, building construction residential permits for the period April 30th to May 11th in the amount of $2,724,550, and I so move.
Anything there worth gossiping about? No?
Not for me to say.
Not for you to see?
No.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion's carried.
Final item, Your Worship, is outside the kit. It has to do with archival air photos. Council has previously approved a photo purchase, and all of this, by the way, is according to and funded from the city, the planning department's budget. They're looking for an increase because basically they need to improve the imageware, and that means they'll have to buy some additional photos with a higher resolution. Now the combined price, rather than being including HST, it was $4,452.20. It's a combined price of $6,011.60. I guess you could consider this a change order, and I so move.
So you need another $1,500.
Basically.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. That concludes planning. We will then go back to the regular agenda, and we are going to start with our Public Works Committee. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The first thing that I want to mention is actually the second thing in my report, and this is just for information only. As part of our transition to an automated waste management system, I'm pleased to be able to inform Council that the first of our retrofitted trucks has arrived, and here is the arm on our one of our 4, actually 5 garbage trucks that will be retrofitted. We're probably slightly behind schedule. 4, but I thought we were going to get a 5th. Okay. Well, we're having a little sidebar here.
Quite all right. Quite all right.
Good. The information is good. This is a good recovery for me, Mr. Yefchak. Anyway,
we'll know there's trouble if you look at him and go, what?
Yeah,
then we'll know there's a problem.
If I had that look of being aghast. What are you talking about? Anyway, it's all good. So that look wasn't there, was it? It was.
Anyway, no.
So we have the first truck back, Your Worship. We're doing the one at a time. They take several weeks to get in because, as most members of council know, these are actually retrofitted in Quebec, and we're doing that so that we're sending them to the manufacturer to rebuy the equipment. The equipment is installed properly so that not only the equipment itself, but the actual installation is warranted as well, and that seemed like the most prudent way to go. So the people have a new toy in the yard, as I said yesterday, and they're learning to operate it. Again, somewhat ironically, 10-year-olds would be able to do this just like that because it's really a joystick mechanism. Seriously, though, some of our operators or people like me, and I did have an opportunity to utilize this and to try to operate it, and I did.
Hold on.
succeed.
Somebody on our staff let you play with
They
city
did,
equipment?
they did. Not this new piece, because this was one that was belonged to Saunders, I believe, at the time. But yes, I did, and it worked very, very well.
Was it fun?
And it was one of the reasons why I endorsed it, because I could actually do it. So with that, Your Worship, that's the first of several, and over the next couple of months,
That's good.
They will be in and operational. And I guess the upside of it, even having one here does provide our workers with an opportunity to seriously get used to the operation, to sort of play with the device, learn to operate and maneuver them. And they were actually doing that yesterday and today. And while they were, yes, enjoying the new toy and having some fun with it, that's also a very necessary and important piece of their training. And once they do hundreds, if not thousands a day, this becomes fairly second nature very, very quickly. Just to note as well, we're on schedule with our bulk garbage. I'd encourage people to go into our website, www.montpearl.ca. Check out the colored area for your particular location. Get your garbage out in time, but not too much ahead of time, because that's not what we want to see. But we're doing well with the collection so far, and we're right on schedule. Our crews are preparing our playing fields and all our outdoor surfaces and getting that up to scratch for the summer season, which seems to be arriving. That's the good news. So maybe you brought some good weather back.
Maybe we brought a little back. I don't know.
If you did, good on you for doing that.
Well, when I showed up here Saturday night, it was raining, so I can't take credit.
No, it's not a warm welcome, but we're doing better since. So the only other thing, we have been for some time now transitioning to a summer-spring schedule. We're doing things like cleaning the streets, have the large vacuum systems out operating. Councillor Tessier in our last meeting mentioned the 20-minute makeover. That's sort of still ongoing, and a lot of our residents are taking advantage of that to clean up areas and green spaces in and around their neighborhoods. If you're doing that, again, the added advantage of registering, because then we know an area's been cleaned. Just today, in fact, I fired off an email to Jerry about our director about an area that I thought really needed to be cleaned. So if any members of council or any members of the public see something in particular that needs to be addressed, you let us know, because it is possible that we're not aware of it, that it's a problem and we may not be aware, or we may have assumed that one of the 20-minute makeover groups may have addressed it. So things can get missed. So I think the idea is to be a little proactive. Send off an email, doesn't hurt, and we'll check it out. Other than that, things are moving forward with our automated system, and we're looking forward to that being in full swing pretty soon, and our pilot in the next few weeks or 6 weeks, I would imagine. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. You have item number 2?
Oh, no, I do. Yeah, sorry, I'm missing an important tender, too, and it's related to the automated system. Your Worship, we have put together a tender, put out a call. Unfortunately, we had just one bid, and that was from Saunders Equipment, but it does meet our specs. This is for 500 household waste carts to the specifications that we've been seeking. And I should remind you that 500 sounds like a lot of carts, but we need about 10,000 plus. So we're ordering a small number. We're piloting them. We're testing them, making sure that they have the stability and the durability and the maneuverability that we need. These will be used in the pilot area off Mortimer Drive that we've identified. We will be ordering another 500 or so later, and we'll be doing it in the second test phase area on a more sloped area, probably in the Farrell Drive area or somewhere in a sloped area of the city. This tender comes in at $41,810, tax included, and I ask for support of council to award this tender to Saunders for that price, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Wall, seconded by Councillor Tessier. Any question or comment?
I just want to make a comment.
Councillor Tessier, if you would.
On the whole program itself, just this morning, Garbage Day was in my neighborhood, and I actually had the opportunity to see the new retrofitted truck up close and personal because I was running to catch it. But I also noticed.
Your pajamas on, I hope.
Well, you know, what happened literally on the road. It should stay on the road. But I did notice, like hungry animals, as you know, we all understand that part of the need for these containers is to keep our city clean.
Yep.
And as with any species, when animals are hungry, particularly seagulls during garbage day, they're going to find a way to get it. And I did notice down my street today that a bag had actually been pulled out from underneath the netting that we use, the netting that we recommend, that we require. It's actually pulled out and torn up. So I just want to, again, articulate why this is going to be, hopefully, a very, very wonderful service for the city of Mount Pearl. We're talking about cleaning up all the time. We're talking about the 20-minute makeover. All of these efforts are going to help reduce that level of litter in our city. So again, I mean, you know, just to see it, you know, seagulls are adapting to our regulations. They're beating us at our own game. So again, I applaud this effort.
Any other comment? Having said that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried. We're moving to Community Services Committee report. Councillor Tessier, you keep the floor.
On my feet again. The first item on our agenda is that we've received a request from the property owner of 54 Michener Avenue for the renewal of the open space agreement that they have with the city. They've had this in place with us for quite some time, so this is just a renewal. So we're recommending renewing for the next 5 years this open space agreement with the owner of 54 Michener Avenue, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Tessier, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Just a very quick question. Why don't we just let these people have that land? Why haven't we sold it to them, give it to them for $1, done something? We keep renewing it every 5 years or so. Is there a reason that we're hanging on to that little piece of land, or?
Answer that question.
I don't know. I just wondered.
Your Worship,
know?
yeah, Your Worship, I can't talk specifically to the property itself, but certainly it is part of the city's open space system. A lot of this was dedicated to the city by developers or by the Housing Corporation, and it was meant to be for public purpose. I guess the concern is if we start taking pieces of the open space area and selling it to individuals, and this would be just one of maybe a number of them, we'll be reducing open space requirements, and I guess for the future of the city, you never know when you really need that open space for public purposes.
Yeah.
So from that perspective,
I guess I just look at it from the perspective of use and value. You know, it's a lot more valuable to the homeowner if it's a little strip of land than it is to us. And so every 5 years, this is like the second or third time this one, we have to keep renewing this thing. Can't we give them 99 years or something?
Yeah, but that said, I mean, it's not really administratively, I don't think it's a lot of effort to renew this particular lease agreement.
Anyway,
So for the sake of the
all right.
practice.
We've called the question. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
The next item, the city's community services department entered the city of Mount Pearl into Irving Energy's community contest. Now, this is a contest that Irving has, where they'll go into 5 locations within the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, Prince Edward Island, and Nova Scotia, and they'll help clean up. They'll send in some employees to help clean up specific areas of your city. So we're actually in this contest. The locations that were suggested are the open space at the corner of Old Placentia Road and Munden Drive. Of course, we're all very familiar with that area because of the particular spring cleanup that happens there. The open space on Munden Drive at the entrance to the driveway leading to St. Peter's Junior High School. Again, that's probably carryover from the power center that's there. And the grounds surrounding Kenmount Park Community Center up on Holden Street. So this is actually a contest that requires people to vote. And the voting opens today. Today's the 14th. No, today's not the 14th. What's today? 15th. Voting opened yesterday, and it closes on June 15th. There's going to be a website that you can go and vote on. I'm assuming we're linking this to our own city's website. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have.
Yes, that's correct. So we're encouraging people to go in, vote for the location that they want to see cleaned up, certainly to give Mount Pearl as much support as possible, because it would be wonderful. Again, another example of good corporate citizenship from Irving, and hopefully we will get to have those people on our grounds and cleaning up and participating, and we'll all be there to help out, I'm sure.
Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Aker?
Just motion? No
No
motion,
motion.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I checked it out just before I came here, and my only question is that you have to put in an email address. And is that basically to avoid duplicate voting, or do they require the email address for some other reason? Don't know if maybe... Yeah.
I'd have no idea. I'm assuming it works identical to the Kraft Hockeyville and
Yeah.
all the the other stuff, I'm assuming.
Well, I think it's a great
that.
idea, and I'm willing to vote and give my
Yeah.
email address. I had no issue with it, but I was just curious why you had to put your email address in, because, I'd love to win multiple times if I could, if you know what I mean, right? But I was just curious. Maybe we can follow that up after the meeting.
I don't know if we're allowed to go in multiple times or not. Jason, you're going to have to figure that out for us, sir. All right. Well, there's no motion on that. We're moving on. Corporate Services, I think, is next. Deputy Mayor Locke, if you would.
Thank you, Your Worship. This will be very quick. Just one item here today from our committee, and that is the invoices for council approval. The 10 are listed there, outlined there, and they total at $467,291.14. And I move that these amounts be accepted as presented.
It is moved by Councillor Locke, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? I think most everybody there will recognize that the first 3 months of the new Go Bus paratransit system, the bills
approximately.
the bills are there, which we're paying. You know there's a meeting coming up in June. We're going to have to make some decisions on where we're going with that, but just to let everybody know, these costs are there, and they are substantial. There is no doubt about that. It is moved and seconded. Any question or comment on any of the invoices that have been presented by the Deputy Mayor? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. That concludes, I believe, committee reports, save for who is going to do the City Awards contract for Pearlgate Recreation Multiplex. Who's doing that?
There's also an engineering.
Oh, we have another committee? I just looked at the agenda and it was gone. I apologize. Engineering. Councillor Ledwell, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 3 items on our agenda this evening. The first is to do with the Team Guju Recreation Facility improvements. Of course, as Council knows, we're going to be doing some work this spring down at the Team Guju complex to widen Arena Road down there and to do some work on the parking lot and so on. Hopefully to make it a bit easier to get around and to find a parking spot, get in and out of the facility down there. Basically, of course, the tender was gone out. It's now come in, and we've reviewed a letter from Bay New Plan, which is our consultant there, outlining the tender results for the project. The recommendation from the consultant has come in, and basically the committee concurs with the recommendation, and that is to award the work on the project to Wears Construction at a bid of $524,205.87. That is a little above the original budgeted amount, but that is basically part of that is to do with the demolition of the house at Arena Road down there. I believe it's 107 Smallwood Drive. So basically, it's not when you factor all of that in, it's not drastically above the budgeted amount. So we would recommend that the tender be awarded to Wears at the quoted amount.
It's just normally above the budgeted amount.
Moved by Councillor Ledwell, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Questions or comments? Councillor Stoyles, did you have anything,
No, I
or
said
that
it.
you were just indicating seconding?
Yes,
Any other question or comment? Councillor Aker, if you would.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And I'm assuming that they're going to start pretty much immediately, or hopefully they will, right? So is there a timeline established for getting this done? Because this area is going to be extremely busy with men's softball.
There's going to be brutal
going
if there's
down.
any delay and slowdown.
You've got
It'll be brutal.
soccer starting middle of June, micro soccer starting on last week of June, early July. You've got the Smallwood Field House down there, baseball starting. Just a suggestion, maybe you've already considered it, but the user groups, and I'm assuming you're going to, well, I guess the questions I have is 2. One is, will we be consulting with the user groups before they start to lay out the plan? And 2, when do you expect to start and finish, I guess? And I know we won't necessarily be able to hold anybody in engineering or community services to that, but naturally, the user groups are going to ask that as well, right?
Mr. Randall, you or Mr. Collins, one of you.
Yes, Councillor Aker, the project is ready to start very soon. We have arranged some meetings with community services to go over what we call pre-construction activities and the use of the parking lot. Completion is expected by the end of June, pending we get started soon. So there is start and end. It requires a period of time in between.
Mm-hmm.
Start quickly, in 6 weeks, it will be done.
Correct.
That is the hope. By the end of June, it would be done. That is.
Dream,
I don't know, Mr. Randall. You're a pretty ambitious guy. But then again, if Mount Carson opens up tomorrow as planned, I'm going to be really impressed. I don't know about the rest of you, but he's an ambitious fellow. Right, carries a big stick. Mr. Collins?
The user groups have been kind of put on notice, but until the construction meeting actually happens and we have the firm dates for start, that's when notification will go out.
Okay, thank you so much. We will then call the question on this, or does anybody else have another comment? If not, all those in favor? Contrary minded, and motion is carried. How easy we spent $500,000. I was actually setting it up to get to that point, but okay, we're moving on.
We are at that point, Your Worship.
Okay, Daddy Warbucks, go.
All right. The second item on our agenda this evening is, of course, a very exciting piece of news for council and for the residents of our city, and that has, of course, to do with the awarding of the tender for our Pearlgate Recreation Multiplex, and that's, of course, the Reed Centre expansion, the remaining piece of the work that is still waiting to be done up on that site. Basically, of course, this is going to be a 60,000 square foot facility. It's going to include an aquatics complex with a very sizable swimming pool there, a fitness center, talking about an indoor walking track, a weight room, and lots of multi-purpose space. So it's going to be a very impressive facility. Of course, the tender went out and it closed on April 30th. There were 4 tenders received, and
a lot of interest.
Tender documents have been reviewed by the consultant, and all bids were found to be in order. The committee recommends approval to award the Pearlgate Recreation Multiplex Reed Centre expansion project to the lowest bidder, which is Marco Services Limited, for the bid of $31 million. Whoops.
Try it again.
I gotta check my glasses here.
That's a rubber dinghy.
31,300,000, excluding HST, and I so move.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Ledwell. It is going to be seconded by Councillor Stoyles. I don't know if anybody has questions or comments. It's just interesting to note that our rookie councillor has proposed the largest capital project ever undertaken in the city's history, and so you should be proud of that. That's a moment for you to mark in your new career. You tried to really get it cheap for us, which we really like that. All right, Councillor Stoyles, you have the floor.
I just want to say, glad to see it coming true, and I know it's been a long time in coming. We had tendered this back close to a year ago and had to pull it back, and glad to see that it's finally moving forward, and the residents of Mount Pearl are certainly excited to know that the swimming pool, which is much needed, a lot of people, myself included, thought the swimming pool probably should have been built before the extension onto the glacier, but because of what we had been told that the arena was shelf ready and whatnot, we went that direction first. But the residents of Mount Pearl certainly need a new swimming pool, and that was a high priority for everybody sitting around the table, and I'm delighted to be part of bringing this in, and glad to see that hopefully within the next 2 years it will be opened, and 18 months is what we're expecting from the time we start, but within 2 years it should be up and running smoothly, and very excited to see this project moving ahead.
Amen. Thank you for that. Councillor Tessier?
Yes, Your Worship, as Chair of Community Services, I want to commend the engineering department for working so diligently with this. We all know that we had to, as the expression says, cut the garment to fit the cloth, or cut the cloth to fit the garment. How does it go? One of it. We had to reduce the price. Had to reduce the price. And I'm hoping that now that...
I think that's a George Bushism she just pulled there, wasn't it?
Same thing.
Same thing.
I'm hoping now that we can actually, now that this has been done, I'm hoping that we can notify the Sport Alliance, because I know through Community Services that a lot of the sporting groups have been very anxious to know when this is going to be done. And while we do it here publicly, I'm not sure that every member of the Sport Alliance is sitting at their computers watching our webcasts with bated breath. So I think that it would be lovely if we did actually send this to the Sport Alliance executives so that they can distribute it to their members as well, because I know that there has been some anxious moments for a lot of people, because they're planning things, they're planning tournaments and events and things around this. So we should definitely let them know.
Absolutely, and I think we will be doing that through our Community Services Department for sure. And of course, as you know, I think immediately following this vote today, which I'm anticipating will be favorable. We do have a news release prepared that will be going out. And just for everybody's benefit, I will pass on to you the comments from the local Minister of Municipal Affairs, because the provincial government, which you should recognize, are making a tremendous contribution to this initiative, as, by the way, is the federal government of Canada. And God knows, we love to beat up on Mr. Harper on occasion, but the federal government of Canada are providing a significant multi-million-dollar contribution, as is the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I was very pleased with the comments of the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Mr. Kevin O'Brien, who's saying they are pleased to invest in projects such as this one that will have a long-lasting social benefit, not just for the city of Mount Pearl and the Northeast Avalon region, but for the province as a whole. And it fits our business strategy, it fits our tourism strategy, it fits really our community strategic plan of trying to find ways of constantly improving the services we provide. I think all of this is excellent news. Any other comments before we invite Councillor Ledwell to close debate? Hearing none. Councillor Ledwell, any other things to say?
Just a couple of points, and that's, of course, I do concur as well, Your Worship, that we do need to thank our friends with the federal government and provincial government, certainly, that we never do something this size without your friends, and so we certainly acknowledge the support of both levels of government. Also, I want to thank the staff at the engineering department, Director Antle and all the gang over at the depot. They've certainly done a wondrous job working through these, looking at the drawings, meeting with the consultants. Certainly kudos, Jerry, to you and your staff for a job well done on this project. And I guess the motion's been made, so we'll take it from there.
On that, thank you, Councillor. We will call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Can we do the wave to approve this?
Let's just get an aye first, then we can do the wave. All those in favor say aye. Contrary minded. Motion is carried. Now you can do the wave. We can even get the guys in purple to do the wave. All right. Well, I think it is. I think it's a big project. Councillor Ledwell.
I have one more item, Your Worship. Thank you. And that's the tender for crack sealing.
This is back to the more mundane, isn't it?
More back to the more mundane, yes. Yeah, we put the exciting news in the middle of it there just to kind of, mix things up a little bit. But we were advised, of course, that the tender for the above-noted project for the crack sealing closed on Friday, May 4th, and one bid was received from Crown Contracting. Basically, one bid was received. This is sort of typical. This is very specialized work, and in speaking with staff, I've been advised that this is generally, I guess, par for the course. We received one bid, and the price, as you see there, is fairly consistent as well. The bid was reviewed and found to be in order. So the recommendation is that the committee recommends approval to award asphalt crack sealing tender to Crown Contracting for the bid amount of $22,125.40, and I so move.
It is moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. That concludes, and I believe that concludes all committee reports. I got it right this time? Engineering, there was no committee report from economic development, and engineering I had it expanded on the screen, so that's why I missed it. We're back to new business. I see when the deputy mayor chaired the meeting 2 weeks ago, he started over here on the left, so today I'll start on the right. Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to keep with the theme of sending kudos to staff, and I do want to congratulate and thank all of our staff, most especially Director Antle and the engineering staff for their work on the Mount Carson Commonwealth Avenue project over here. Certainly that is a significant road closure and a potentially problematic and challenging situation for all involved, but I do think that the project was handled in the best way possible. We look at this from a standpoint of, I guess, short-term pain for long-term gain was the phrase that was used, and I think that from responding to inquiries and perhaps concerns from the business committee down there and from the motoring public, I think we did a pretty good job of doing that. I heard it said at some point along the way that this was probably the most communication the city had ever done on any one particular issue. Of course, I've only been around for a few months, so I don't know that to be true, but I think we certainly did our part. Nobody likes to have detours and road closures, but this is necessary work for the development up on Mount Carson Avenue and in that area. So it's something that we had to do. We certainly discussed as a committee and as a council, and I know that the director and his staff put their best foot forward, and certainly did what they could to make it as easy as possible for everybody. So
Amen to that.
once again.
Absolutely. Well done.
Just a couple of other things. I do want to raise attention that this is, of course, Youth Week in the City of Mount Pearl. At our last meeting, we had the gang from the Youth Action Team that were here with their proclamation, but the events had already started. Deputy Mayor Locke and I were up at the show last night. A great set of young acts up there for sure, and a lot of enjoyment had by all. And there's all kinds of activities going on all week, and of course, the highlight of it all is our Focus on Youth Awards on Thursday night. So I know council and a lot of our residents certainly look forward to that. So certainly look on the city's website, mountpearl.ca, for all information about Youth Week. Also want to make mention of the Mount Pearl Show Choir. All the students and staff, certainly parents and volunteers as well, were involved in putting together the Etc. show, Etc. 26, this past week and weekend. I think our students and our young people continue to amaze us with the talents that they have. Put off a fantastic show, so certainly a hearty congratulations to everybody involved with the Etc. production. Well done to all the students, teachers, staff, and parents and volunteers as well. And finally, I just want to close this evening by making mention of the Mount Pearl Lions Club. This past Monday night, not last night, but the week before, we had our charter night. I'm a member of the Lions Club. I was at the event, and Councillor Walsh was there representing the council as well. It was the Mount Pearl Lions Club 58th annual charter night, and that's a long history of community service, volunteer, and helping others. And so I just want to congratulate the Mount Pearl Lions Club on 58 great years, and I certainly want to make special congratulations of a Mount Pearl resident by the name of Phil Field, who was actually awarded Lion of the Year that night. Phil has actually been involved with the Lions Club for over 50 years himself, so he's very much one of the pillars that the Lions Club in Mount Pearl is built upon, and his community services should definitely be noted, and he should be congratulated for that. So
Absolutely.
That's that. So I thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir, very much. Councillor Walsh.
Just one quick thing, Your Worship, and that is related to the Save a Drop campaign, which is a new campaign that was launched by the regional partners who use water from, in this case, Babel's Big Pond. That would include the City of St. John's, City of Mount Pearl, Town of Paradise, Town of Conception Bay South, and Town of Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, who uses some of the water from Babel's Big Pond. The whole idea of this, Your Worship, really is to highlight some ways that we can, both in our gardens and in our homes, save water. We have erroneously thought for years that water's free. We have plentiful supply. It's not an abundance like it used to be, for sure, because the demands on water are very, very high, and accessing new sources of water are extremely expensive. In our case, and all of the regional partners, including the City of St. John's, as a matter of fact, our costs over the next 3 years are probably going to increase by as much as 75 to 80%, I would think. And it's millions and millions of dollars a year, so it's not free. So when we see people not using water prudently, washing off their cars with hoses that are not capped, or for that matter, even doing their driveways and streets, this is treated potable water.
Yeah.
So it really can't continue.
That's really the
practice.
tragedy. That's really the
It is
tragedy to some
tragic,
degree
and-
that
and
this
it's,
is potable
for
water.
most of us who are tuned in, it's a little hard to take. But anyway, I wanted to highlight that, and one of the things that's nice about this is we have 3 pages. The 4th page, the various municipalities can actually tailor to their own needs. So if we want to do these and send them out to residents, which we will, we have 3 pages that are exactly the same throughout the entire region, and then the 4th page, Mount Pearl can put its own information, contact information, different things. So it's a great campaign.
So when are we going to do that? When are we going to do that?
Well, hopefully in the next few days. It's been in the hands of staff now, so we'll leave it in their capable hands to do it.
It's cooperation works. I'm only just catching up.
It's a great campaign, Your Worship. It's the first time we've launched it.
It's a good idea,
The Idea
too.
Factory in St. John's actually did the marketing for it on behalf of all of the user groups, and they've done a splendid
Good job.
with it. Yeah. So thanks
All right.
very much.
Thank you, sir, for that. Councillor Stoyles.
A couple of things. I also want to mention the road closure, and that one thing I want to note, that none of the businesses were really closed, especially when you look at I received a number of complaints, a number of calls more course, out in complaints about business being open, and especially down the Piper section. All those businesses remained open, and actually it was easier to get into them and out of them. And in all the media stuff that we
that's
had,
true.
in all the media stuff we done, and I spoke to Mr. Bennett, who owns that building down there, because he called me, and I had returned his call a couple of times. It was actually easier to get in and out to go to Piper's, because when you go in that building on a regular basis, is normally sometimes difficult to get out, and you got to wait. It was the easiest time in my life to get in and out, because I was down there on Sunday morning, and I couldn't believe, even Sunday when traffic is not that bad, it's still sometimes difficult. But all the business remained open, which was good, and hopefully the road will be reopened on Thursday morning, or hopefully, it's not tomorrow, it's Thursday morning, isn't it, when it's going to be reopened. So that's great. Well, I'm just, no.
It is supposed to be open at, I believe, 6 a.m. Wednesday morning.
It's Wednesday morning, I thought it was Thursday
We're
morning.
I'm anticipating that it'll be more like 5 p.m. Wednesday evening.
Oh, well.
But certainly by start of business Thursday, it should be smooth sailing up and down that hill. That's the hope.
Yeah,
Mr.
well,
Adler, you want to address this again? Because you're really wearing this one, big guy.
I'm really pleased to say that asphalt is being laid up there right now,
As we talk.
as we talk.
Well, this is really good news.
And if all goes well, and nothing else, like no Murphy's Law gets us again,
No big motors break down.
we should have the asphalt that's required. We call it our base course tonight.
Which
Then
would
it's-
mean tomorrow morning she'd open.
Then it's a call we make this evening if we believe we should be ready to either lay the second course and hold it closed, or if we'll proceed with the base course and we'll do surface course with the road open. Right, but right now,
That's what I do then,
I believe right now we will have asphalt. I'm told right now they're laying asphalt now.
Excellent.
Bearing any
that's
circumstances, we should
excellent.
have asphalt.
That is
tonight.
excellent news. Thank you, sir. Councillor Stiles.
I have a couple of other things, Your Worship. The next thing I want to mention is the Avalon meeting, which is taking place May 26th at Legs Hotel in Hearts Content. And of course, as Avalon Director, I will be hosting the meeting. It's from 9 to 3. It's a full-day session at Legs Hotel.
I can't go now. I was going and I can't go. Remember the last
Yes,
one got
the last
canceled?
one got canceled because of
Yeah.
the storm,
Yeah.
and it's being rescheduled. So,
I'm committed to marry some people. So
oh well, that's probably a bit more important.
yeah, they would be very upset.
And I wanted to
Until they
invite,
unless
of
they tell
course,
them, come to
yeah,
Hearts Content.
everybody on the Avalon, of course, is invited to come, all the councillors and staff, and looking forward to hosting it in Hearts Content. Last year, I think we did it here in Mount Pearl, so we try and travel around the Avalon. And on M&L, I wanted to say that I was in Gander this past weekend, and of course, a number of new initiatives was launched. We talked about them in the past, the tire and the fuel. Right now, we have some new flyers on both them, and I'm going to pass them
That's
on.
the tire recycling
That's the
program?
no, this is purchasing.
Oh, this is the
tires.
new purchasing
This is
program
the
with
new-
the Alberta
yes.
Municipal
That's right.
Agency,
And
yeah.
so all this, the M&L hired a new staff person, and the gentleman's name is Steve Quinton, and he's the member service director, and he's going to be the one to contact, to speak to, and his name and number and all the information is on that. And of course, like I said, the symposium was on this past weekend. It was the largest symposium we've had since M&L had started over 60 years ago, and it's grown so big that it looks like they're going to have to see about making changes, because it's just, so many people looking for education that, they're looking at seeing about making changes.
They
It's
got it. The
unbelievable.
convention should be held in the spring, and the symposium should be held in the fall.
And I think they may look at something along that
Why
lines.
won't they listen,
but
you people on the board?
But it was certainly great. It was almost 400 people in Gander this past weekend, municipal leaders in Gander, so it was a great crowd. Just one moose accident.
It's a wonderful event.
Yeah. Anyway, also, while we were in Gander, we were informed by, I guess, the municipal affairs that they have a new manager of municipal training, and the gentleman is from Mount Pearl, Mr. Pat Dunn, and I wanted to mention him today. We met him out in Gander. So Patrick Dunn is the new manager of municipal training.
Oh, wonderful.
And I don't know if he's going to be out in Hearts Content, but I know I'm up to Southern Shortamore for the Irish Loop symposium all day tomorrow. So I understand he's going to be up there tomorrow doing something up there. So I know Mr. Dunn, actually, he was in Toastmasters instead of Toastmasters here in Mount Pearl a number of years ago. So I just want to say congratulations to him. Also, while I was in Gander, they had awarded the awards for the competition that was done by Recreation Newfoundland and Labrador, and they're in the process of starting a new competition. And it says save the date, May 30th to June 2nd is their AGM, but the whole month of June they have a new small steps, big results coming up, a new competition on the go, and it's you have to go into the website and
Boys,
get all
we
the
don't want to do it
information.
again, do we?
It's a new competition, but it's about communities this time. It's a little bit different. It's not exactly about yourself as such as about bringing the community out, and it's certainly the website is here, www.smallstepsbigresults.net, and anybody, they're asking towns and communities to get involved. And it was nice taking your money, so I don't know if I can take your money again.
Double or nothing. Look at them, look at them, look at them. They're animals.
Anyway, I wanted to mention that as well. And the last thing I have today is I was at the Airport Authority for the annual meeting today, and I have their report to present to council. And of course, every time they do the meeting and do the report, they always have information of what's happening. So one of the things, they showed us a video about, I guess it was only about a 2-minute video about landing in the fog. Apparently they're buying this new technology and it should be here within the next 15 months or so. And they said the past 2 weeks where they had 4 days and they were down, all the planes could land once this new technology is installed at the airport. So that was great news that they said 99% of the flights will, once they get this new technology, will build land. The only time they probably won't build land if it's a snowstorm. But in fog, they said when they get this new technology, they're going to be a lot more efficient. And of course, the other things they talked about was there's going to be more parking at the airport. They're going to have more luggage areas, and they're going to have more food and beverages. So they're going to, in the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to be improving even more. And I mean, the airport looks so nice now since they've renovated the past number of years. And of course, we have a rep on the airport. Mr. Ray Stamp was at the meeting today.
We actually have two.
And Blair Patrick, Blair
Chamber of Commerce.
Blair represents Chamber of Commerce. Blair wasn't there today; he was away today. But Mr. Stamp is, of course, not running for office, so not going to be there. His term is up. I think it's not up until September, though. So we will be putting 3 names forward.
Went in today. 3 names went forward today.
Went forward today because they were asking when the names were going. I said we'd had the 3 names and we would be putting them forward.
I would say they'll probably have the letter tomorrow or the day after. Yeah.
All right. So anyway,
with names, bios, everything.
And the report will be left here in the office if anybody would like to have a look at it or read it. I just wanted to say that it was enjoyable out there today, and I think I've been out the past number of years.
Yeah.
I'm glad to do it on behalf of the city.
I found it interesting. I saw that report today. Council probably hasn't looked at it, but the economic development reality of the international airport in the city of St. John's is over $400 million. And I don't know about you, but there's a mayor on Gower Street who gets to tax it, and the rest of us don't. All part of the regional burden, I guess.
Isn't that the same mayor who complains about us driving on the roads to get...
Same guy. Deputy Mayor. Or are you done, Councillor Stiles? I'm sorry. Are you finished? Or
well, I was just going to mention the Canettes. The Canettes will be doing the Ladies' Night on Wednesday, May 27th, if anybody needed tickets.
So has my wife got her tickets? She got her girlfriends?
Your wife got her tickets.
Because she goes every year.
Yeah, your wife got her tickets, but if anybody else wanted tickets, they can let me know.
Wednesday the 20th, that's next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, the 23rd, and dinner is 6:30 at the Reed Centre. And this is something that, and of
that
course,
means after men's league I can stay at the bar.
Yeah, breast cancer is one of the charities that they have selected.
Wonderful. Deputy Mayor.
I thought I usually got to speak last, but I'm okay with.
I'm just going around the house. I try to mix it up a bit.
Well, several of the things have already been touched on. I too wanted to mention, first of all, Mr. Antle and Mr. Silver also was acting CAO while Madam CAO was away. It was a very interesting week. They had a lot of stuff on the plate that came, and so again, kudos to both of you gentlemen, but also all of our senior management and the staff, because they all contributed. They all stepped up to the plate and certainly kept things smooth sailing. I know we met before the closure of the road, and Mr. Antle made a comment afterwards that perhaps some people may have thought it was overkill, but it was not. It was very well planned out, well thought out. And what I was impressed with was, I had emails from residents that said, did you consider this? Did you consider this? And Mr. Antle provided updates on a regular basis, and he took their consideration or their suggestions into consideration and implemented a lot of them, and they were very satisfied with that. So again, I know Councillor Ledwell mentioned it, but I just wanted to echo that. I thought it was a great job. It was a week, but I keep going back to Cecil here on CBC Radio, because the day before he was sort of suggesting that it was going to be total chaos. This is the busiest intersection in the province, and we're closing it down for a full week. And Anthony Germain took him to task on that, and C said, I got to admit, you could fire a cannonball down Commonwealth Avenue. He said everything is, his favorite word is going tickety-boo. So again, hats off to the folks that did that. Also, I want to touch on the show last night as a part of our Youth Week. I figure, Councillor Ledwell, we probably had about 80 to 100 kids out there last night, and I'm always amazed at the showcase of talent that our youth have. And again, I got there probably with an hour and a half or so left, but some of the performances were just, they're out of this world. But I got to mention this last gentleman. I don't mean to highlight anybody, but it was called beatboxing. Is that the right term? Where he uses the mic and he makes all of the synthesizer sounds and the drum sounds with he finished second in Canada, and I think 16th at a world competition. You got to hear this young fellow. Jake Reed, I think it's the gentleman's name, Jake Reed, and it was amazing. So it was a great way to end, but all the shows were fantastic. There was such a range of performances there. We'll see some of them again on Thursday night at our Focus on Youth Awards. So it was great. Also, I did want to mention that as a part of Youth Week as well, we had a guest speaker that Gary Fraser with Community Services arranged. He came into both high schools today, Mount Pearl Senior High and O'Donnell High School. And this gentleman's, I'm saying Jeremy Bennett, but is that the correct name? Jeremy, okay. I looked wrong when I wrote it down here. He gave a presentation. He's a motivational speaker, and basically he discussed how he had overcome obsessive compulsive disorder. So he spoke to the students for a little over an hour. He was amazing, and he held the attention of 600 high school students for the full hour. He had a great message to bring, the whole notion of positive thinking, and he went into his own personal affair where he had ODC for 10 years. He didn't address it. He got clinically depressed, and then he sought help. So it was a great message about mental health issues, anxiety, and that seek help, and things can improve. So I just thought it was a great initiative. So hats off to our friends at Community Services for, if you can pass on kudos to Mr. Fraser and all the staff that worked on that, because the response from our students was overwhelming, and it was fantastic. So it was a very worthwhile speaking event. So I wanted to mention that. And the last thing from me, Your Worship, is I just want to ask that we send a letter of condolence to Dr. Randy Smith. He's been practicing here in the city for decades. His brother Donald passed away the weekend, so I just wanted to publicly extend condolences to the Smith family, and perhaps we can send a letter on behalf of the city to that event or that effect. And that's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tessier?
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, echo the sentiments of my colleagues with the construction. I drive it every single solitary day. And when I had someone say to me, was it necessary to close the road? I said, well, have a look, drive east-west on Tops Road and have a look at the size of the holes that we've dug. You can put a Metrobus in there. Would you want to navigate around that or be responsible for it, or be the one standing there next to it, navigating the traffic through? It was all in an effort to create a very, very safe environment for everybody, which has been done to a very high standard. And the other side of it is, it's just a week. It is a week. There's many more things we could complain about besides that. I want to express congratulations to the cast, crew, directors, everybody involved with Etc. 26. It was a stellar show again this year, absolutely stellar. Everybody always says the same thing. This one was better than the last, better than the last. Hundreds of hours go into this, and I know firsthand because I am a parent of a performer in this event. These are kids that give up after schools. They gave up all their Easter vacations to rehearse for this show, and it's certainly paid off in spades. And of course, to the Golding family who take this on every single year. It's just spectacular. What an event. It is such a far cry from your high school concert. It's just, you can't even compare the two. It's
It's very professional.
It's incredible. It's a real big production. And now, of course, the show choir, Mount Pearl Show Choir, are preparing for their European tour, which will happen immediately after school ends in June. So that's such dedication and such talent. It's just unbelievable. And speaking of talent, last night I went to the Father John B. Kent Council 7th Annual Bill Rossiter Memorial Grade 6 Speak Off. Now, Councillor Ledwell was there as well, I guess wearing your other hat as a member of the Knights.
Are you guys, who judged?
I was a judge.
You were a judge?
I was a judge.
Tough job, hey.
I can't even tell you. I said when it was done after, I looked at Pat O'Keefe and said, really?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me this first off.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, the kids could be scored out of a possible 300 points. There was 4 points separating first, second, and third.
Wow.
Out of 300 points, 3 independent judges. Grade 6 students, I got to tell you, the first place winner was Brianna Heptich from St. Peter's Elementary. Second place was Victoria Stormer. I'm going to say that, and I know that's not right. And third place is Andrew Heptich. Their speeches were great, but what I was particularly impressed about, these are grade 6 children. And many of them didn't even look at their notes. They just stood there, they faced the audience, they made direct eye contact with you, they were passionate about what they were talking about, they were very well versed in what they were talking about. It was so impressive, and I thought, you know what, we best not all get comfortable in these chairs, because they're coming. They are coming up. And finally, I'm not sure if anybody heard it over the course of the weekend, but well, it was I first saw it on Facebook, but it also made an announcement on VOCM. Apparently a coyote was spotted within our city limits, actually over around Jeffers Drive.
Another one.
Yeah, around Easton Place. And actually the picture that I saw showed this creature around residential properties. It was on a pathway in between homes. So I instantly notified Mr. Antle, who also notified the appropriate authorities, and has moved rather quickly. He's had a very busy week, and he's been very efficient, I have to say. Coyotes. If you go on our City of Mount Pearl website right now, there is a link that will take you to the Department of Environment and Conservation. You'll see this page. This page tells a resident what to do should you encounter a coyote in and around your neighborhood. I would encourage anybody, just as a preventative measure, to just go in and look at it. Hopefully it was, this is going to be very rare. However, it's never a bad thing to know what you should and should not do. But again, back to our garbage collections, one of the things that you should not do is have garbage out where it can be accessible to these coyotes.
Food drags everything to the neighborhood.
Absolutely. So again, our new garbage bin program that's going to be in place is going to be helpful for very many reasons. And this is certainly going to be one of them. We're living in an area now where there's much development happening around us, and as a result, wild animals are being driven from their natural habitat, and they're looking for food, and they're looking for shelter. And unfortunately, it might actually bring them into our municipal limits. And another thing to note is small children and pets should never be unattended, because it could lead to chase. But again, it's on our city website. The link is right there on the home page.
Good.
All you have to do is click on it, what should I do? And it takes you right to this page, and I'd encourage anybody to just do that, just as a preventative at this point. Hopefully it's not going to be an issue, but it never hurts to be informed. And that's it.
Councillor Tessier, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, yes, I mean, we've had, sightings here, and but there was a guest speaker on CBC last week, Dr. Alistair Bath, with the Department of Geography, speaking about coyotes, and they're in New York City, they're in Toronto, they're in Vancouver, they're in Edmonton, they're in Calgary, they're in Montreal. So the fact that they're popping up here now in Mount Pearl, St. John's Paradise, just so the residents don't get alarmed and figure that we're being overrun by a pack of coyotes. But it is prudent, as Councillor Tessier did say, to have a look at the information on the website, just to familiarize yourself with proper procedures and protocol there. But again, not to incite any sort of panic in the residents in Mount Pearl, because again, it's commonplace right across North America. So I just wanted to throw that into your worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, and I too want to reiterate everything Council said about the construction at Mount Carson Topsail. The thing that came to my mind was teamwork. And I know there has to be a lead hand on every project, but it seemed like every division and every department and all staff levels were involved in that one. It's very well handled, by the way. Etc. was a great show, as was so far Youth Action Week, or Youth Week here in Mount Pearl. Just want to remind Council there's a briefing session tonight at 7 o'clock about the property at 160 Park Avenue. 160 or 166?
166.
This is the former Park Avenue school site, and there's a proposal to develop some condos there. And of course, that doesn't jive with the current zoning. So we're going to have some of the residents over for a briefing session. Hopefully other members of the public will be there, and I invite all of Council to attend the meeting, and from there we'll go. And the final thing I have, Your Worship, is I'd just like to make the public aware that on Saturday, June 2nd, the City is proceeding with the 2012 Waterford River Cleanup Blitz. And we're looking for businesses, residents, community groups to participate in the cleanup. It'll happen on June, just bear with me, on June 2nd at 10 a.m. We're going to meet here at City Hall. The city's going to provide the gloves and the bags, and we're going to go down and we're going to clean up the Waterford River for a couple of hours.
I guess I'm going to need my flicks,
No backhoe.
my boots,
Your boots, absolutely. Yep. Your galoshes.
my big green boots that I wear
Sou'wester
so
if it's
clear. I guess
raining.
that's what I got to have.
Yeah. The contact with the city, and we're asking groups if they could pre-register because we'll have an idea how many are going to participate, is Monica Storch in the Planning and Development Department. Her number is 748-1145. Please contact Monica. And hopefully we'll get a good turnout from Council. I'm sure we will. And Your Worship, if you could come to the barbecue too at the end, host a barbecue, it'd be really nice.
I'm going
That'll
to
be
be
at 12
I'm going to
noon
be in the river.
on the 2nd.
You'll find me in the river.
All
Some
right.
people will be delighted to hear this. You will find me in the river.
And I shall
That
step
morning.
down. It was a nice long meeting. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you. That concludes all of the agenda items. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. It is moved by the Deputy Mayor. We stand adjourned.